Hi everyone, this is a tutorial on section 1.3. In an earlier video, in an earlier lesson, we studied how to draw a rectangle on the canvas using Python and the shapes library that's provided to us. So the first function or command that we learned was the rectangle command, and we saw how this worked. Simple command. The first two numbers are the upper left corner of that rectangle. This is the width in the horizontal or X direction, and the height in the Y or vertical direction. And optionally, you can add another parameter that specifies the fill color. So the additional shapes we're going to learn about are basically variations of this. So let's get started and look at the oval shape. Now, to do this, before we dive into the Python code, I'm just going to revert back here to this document that we've used in the past. And this is just a Word document, but it allows me to use the built-in shapes that are built into MS Word. So, for example, let's say we wanted to draw an oval. So an oval is, think of it as a flattened circle, and you need to specify a couple of things. First of all, where do you want me to draw this oval? What is its center? And the second idea would be, how big should it be? So you can draw small ovals, big ovals. So there's a small one. I can put them anywhere I want, right? I can make them more round. I can orient them more vertically or horizontally, etc. Like so. So the idea here is when we use a computer command for this, we need to provide the information needed. So let's talk about that. I'm going to draw kind of a nice big oval right around here. Oops. What I want us to notice is that this oval shape, as soon as I let go, we won't be able to see behind it. It won't be transparent anymore. But there is a center to the oval, and we need to know that location ahead of time in order to code it. And then there's also a width on the x-axis and a height on the y-axis. So I think you can clearly see those things. So constructing an oval is very much like a rectangle. We just need to type the oval command and provide the information needed. So let's give it a center at, say, 200, which is the center of the canvas. And then just make it a tall one. So we'll say it's 100 wide and 200 tall. Now, let's run this and see what it looks like so far. And we've got a default color of black. I don't like that black. So let's set the fill color to cyan. Okay, so same thing as with the other shapes, we can set a border, and the border color and the border width, and we can also make it dashed. We can also use gradients. So all of those things that you learned in section 2 with the colors, they apply here in these other shapes as well. So let's move on to drawing a circle on the canvas, which is actually quite similar, just one minor variation. So just like the oval, the circle needs you to identify two pieces of information. Where do you want to draw this circle? Give me a center point. So I'm going to use, say, this point right here as our center. And then, of course, how large is the circle? Now, the oval has length and width, or you might call them, width and height parameters. And for a circle, the width and the height are the same, because that's what makes it a circle. So you could, for example, think of a circle, certainly, as a oval that has just been sort of rounded off. Let me demonstrate. So we could change this oval easily into a circle if I just keep dragging it down and make the height of it the same as the width. That's the idea. So let's go take a circle that I've already created and just drop it on the center here so we can see. So the unique thing about a circle, of course, is that it has a center point, and it also has what we call a radius. And the radius of this circle, of course, is the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. And that distance is constant, right? Just adjusting this so it sets right on that target, so it looks right. All right, that's a pretty good circle. It's not perfect. We also have what we call the diameter of the circle. So the diameter of the circle is the width at the widest point. So that would be the diameter right there. And so notice if the radius is the distance from the center to the circle edge, then a diameter is just 2 of those. So this is important to understand, that the entire width of the circle is 2 radiuses, or 2 radii. So in Python, when I want to draw a circle, I'll just open up a function called circle and start providing the arguments that it needs. So the first 2 numbers, as before, are, in this case, instead of the upper left corner, it's going to be the center, just like an oval. So 100, 200 is my center. I want my circle to be 100 units wide, which means the radius is 50. So I'll plug that number in right there. So we could be done at this point. This is, I think, going to put a black circle somewhere on the canvas, but let's keep going. I don't like the default fill color, so I'm going to say fill equals the cyan. I'm also thinking I should have a border on this, so let's say the border is going to be a darker blue, so I'll just say blue. Whoops, border equals blue, sorry. And finally, the border width. So I want that to be a little bit bigger than usual. Let's set that equal to, I'll say, a 4. All right. So notice that this thing starts to scroll off the right side of the screen here. This code is going to run fine. There it is. But if you end up putting lots more things up here and it starts to scroll off the page and you can't see it, yeah, you have the scroll bar here to scroll horizontally. But I just want to show this to you. Python doesn't really care about spaces. So let's say you had a whole bunch, like 5 or 6. We only have 3. But let's say you had a whole bunch of parameters here. It's certainly going to make this easier to read if I did something like that. And it also saves us from scrolling off the screen. So I just want you to know that you can set up your functions like this. I'm not suggesting that you do. But the point is the spaces don't affect the running of the program. So now let's talk about the line function. If someone asked you to draw a line, you might reasonably ask, how long would you like this line? You wouldn't ask if it's going to be a straight line, because by definition, all lines are straight. So if you think about this, what we really need is a starting point and an ending point. So we need 2 points. So in math speak, we're going to call them the x1, y1 and the x2, y2. So in the Microsoft Word script here, I'm just going to insert a line just to be consistent here. So we're going to start at x1, y1 and draw that line, snap it. So the length of the line is not really something that we're too concerned about. I don't know how long this line is. We could figure it out by looking at the Pythagorean theorem, it turns out. So we would make a right triangle, and this would be the hypotenuse. So we know the difference of these vertical points. It's just the difference in the y values. We know the difference of these x values here, because we need to know these x and y addresses. So we could construct the right triangle here, and this line here, the length of it, is the same as the length of the hypotenuse on the right triangle. And that's the Pythagorean theorem. So it turns out that this thing called the distance formula that allows you to find the length of a line really is just the Pythagorean theorem. So back in the coding window, let's use the line command and draw a line. So it didn't specify any specific starting point or ending point, so I'm just going to make them up. Why not? So let's start at 50, 60, and we're going to make our line go to the point How about 240, comma, I'm just making this up, why not, 300. Spaces are not important here. If I leave this as it is, it's going to be a black line, but let's set the line to red. So you might think we were going to use the border command here to set the line color, just like a border color, but there is no border command or parameter for lines. Instead, just use the fill color, just like any other shape. So let's say the fill is red. Now we can change the line thickness, but that's coming. So there's our red line between those 2 points, 50, 60 and 240, 300. So here's a follow-up question. We'd like you to draw a red horizontal line that's 150 units long, starting at the point 100, 200. So in this case, we didn't give you the second endpoint, but we gave you information about how to decide what that point should be. So let's begin coding. Again, we're drawing a line. So the line command, we know our starting point is 100, 200. That's fine. But now in this case, we just want it to be 150 units long, but this line is completely horizontal. So in other words, whatever the second endpoint is, the y value is not going to change. Now think deeply about this, please. If the second y coordinate is different from 200, that means it's going to have a slope going up or down. But if the y coordinate of the second point stays at 200, then we know that this is going to be a horizontal line. So all we need is this second point here, right? So if our line starts at an x value, in other words, an x location of 100, and we want it to be horizontal 150 units long, then we would just add 150 to 100 and of course get 250. And that would be the length of our line. So remember, the line starts at 100, but goes to 250. That's a total length of 150. All right, let's set our fill color to red. Now we can also change the border, or the line width. You are accustomed to using the border width parameter. We don't have a border here, but if we want to change the width of the line, we can set the line width to equal something that we want. So I'll just say 4. All right, let's take a look. Just double check that we got this right, and there it is. If you'd like, you can also set the dashes equal to true. We can make dashed solid lines. And so on. So that is it for section 131, rectangles, ovals, circles, and lines. In the next video, I will start talking about polygons, text boxes, and stars.